It's 3 a.m. and you're lying awake, staring at the ceiling, doing the kind of math that keeps millions of Americans up at night. Your paycheck comes in, then the rent goes out, groceries, utilities, maybe a car payment. And if one unexpected expense shows up, a flat tire, a medical bill, or a broken appliance, the entire month falls apart. Meanwhile, you look around and see people your age who seem to be building wealth almost effortlessly. They have the same 24 hours you do. They aren't necessarily smarter, yet somehow their bank accounts keep growing while yours barely moves. So what's the difference? It's not luck, it's not winning the lottery, and it's definitely not working 80-hour weeks. It comes down to 3 powerful shifts in the way wealthy people think about and use money. By the end of this video, you'll understand the psychology behind those shifts, the numbers that make them work, and the practical steps you can start using today. I'm Ivan, and I help people use simple financial principles to create long-term wealth. If you're tired of the usual advice that tells you to work until you're sing and hope everything somehow works out, subscribe to the channel. And if this video changes the way you think about money, make sure to hit the like button. Think back to school for a second. 2 students spend the same amount of time studying. One earns an A because they understand how the test is structured, what topics matter most, and how to use their time efficiently. The other studies just as hard, but barely gets by because they're playing the game without understanding the rules. Money works exactly the same way. Most people hustle harder. They work overtime, cut expenses, and chase side gigs. They're putting in the effort, but they're following the wrong playbook. Wealthy people are playing a completely different game, and these 3 shifts are the reason they keep pulling ahead. In survey after survey, Americans consistently rank money as their biggest source of stress. More than work, more than relationships, more than almost anything else. And when your brain associates money with fear, guilt, or shame, you unconsciously push it away. Think about that for a moment. If deep down you believe that money is bad or that wealthy people must be greedy, how motivated are you really going to be to build wealth yourself? That belief starts working against you before you ever make your first investment. Picture yourself standing in the cereal aisle at the grocery store. You're debating whether to buy the name brand box or save a couple of dollars with the generic version. It feels like you're making a decision about cereal. You're not. You're experiencing the stress that comes from believing money is always scarce and always in control. Money is neutral. It's a tool, just like a hammer. A hammer can build a home or break a window. The tool isn't good or bad. It simply magnifies the person using it. If you're generous, money allows you to help more people. If you're irresponsible, money amplifies those habits too. The people who see money as the enemy often sabotage themselves without realizing it. They spend emotionally when they feel guilty. They avoid learning how investing works. They stay trapped in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle because they believe that's simply how life is supposed to be. Let's put some numbers on it. Spend just $10 a day without thinking about it, and that's roughly $300 a month or $3,600 a year. Invest that money instead at an average annual return of 7%, and after 10 years, you'd have around $55,000. That's the price of letting money quietly slip through your hands. So here's one change you can make today. Stop thinking of money as something dirty or evil. Start seeing it as a tool you control. Take just $50 each month from something you'll barely remember. Unused subscriptions, impulse food delivery, or random online purchases, and move it into savings or toward paying off debt. That one habit sends your brain a powerful message. I control my money. My money doesn't control me. Now let's move to the second shift. This is where most people get stuck. They believe the path to wealth is simply working more hours. So they volunteer for overtime, pick up second jobs, and push themselves until they're completely exhausted. But there's one problem. Every day still has only 24 hours. Even if you're making $30 an hour, there's a limit to how much time you can sell. I've known people who work 6 days a week, spend Sunday trying to recover, and still feel like they're falling behind. They're exhausted, short-tempered with their families, and convinced they'll finally slow down once the debt is gone. But that day rarely comes. Because if all you're doing is trading time for money, you're trapped in a cycle with a hard ceiling. Wealthy people ask a different question. Instead of asking, how can I work more? They ask, how can I earn more without constantly trading my time? They buy back their time by investing in assets, systems, and skills that continue producing value even when they aren't working. Imagine someone works 50 hours every week but never invests a dollar. Now compare that to someone who works 40 hours, consistently invests $50 each month into a low-cost index fund, and earns an average annual return of 7%. After 30 years, that investment grows to roughly $600,000. One person ends up exhausted with very little to show for decades of work. The other ends up with choices. And once you begin valuing your time, your spending habits change too. You'll gladly spend $200 on something that saves you 10 hours every month, but you'll think twice before spending that same $200 on a status purchase that steals from your future freedom. Take 1 week and audit your time honestly. Highlight every hour you're trading for very little return, unnecessary overtime, endless commuting, mindless scrolling, or habits that leave you just as tired without moving your life forward. Replace just two of those hours with something that creates value long after the work is done. Learn a new skill. Build a small side business. Improve your health so you have more energy every day. Those small investments compound far faster than another overtime paycheck ever will. Your greatest asset isn't your job. It isn't your home. It isn't your 401k. It's you, your knowledge, your health, your skills, your relationships. Wealthy people understand this better than anyone. Before they upgrade their lifestyle, they upgrade themselves. They spend money on books, courses, coaching, certifications, therapy, and experiences that make them more capable. Why? Because every improvement you make to yourself increases your ability to earn for the rest of your life. Think about two different paths. One person finances a $40,000 car. Another takes that same amount of money over several years and invests it in education, professional certifications, or launching a small business. 5 years later, the first person owns a car that's worth far less than they paid for it. The second person has a higher income, stronger skills, greater confidence, and far more opportunities. How many times have you talked yourself out of buying a book or enrolling in a course because it felt too expensive? Then a few days later, you spend the same amount on takeout or impulse purchases you'll barely remember. Now let me tell you about someone I know. A friend of mine was buried in debt and barely making enough to cover rent every month. They honestly believed they'd never get ahead, but instead of giving up, they started with what they could afford. Free financial education on YouTube, a few inexpensive books, a low-cost online course. They treated learning as a necessity instead of a luxury. Within 2 years, they had paid off their debt, built an emergency fund, and started investing every month. They're not a millionaire, but that's not the point. They sleep better, they have choices, and their entire relationship with money has changed. Maybe you're thinking, that sounds great, but I can't afford to invest in myself. The truth is, you can't afford not to. Self-investment doesn't have to cost thousands of dollars. A $20 book, a free online class, a $50 workshop that teaches a valuable skill. Those small investments can return tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of your career. The real risk isn't spending money on yourself. The real risk is standing still. Think about it this way. A $200 pair of sneakers loses value the moment you wear it. $200 course that helps you earn just $1 extra per hour adds roughly $2,000 to your annual income year after year. The return isn't even close. So here's your next step. Commit to one investment in yourself this month. Start a fitness routine. Learn a valuable skill. Join a professional community. Whatever you choose, treat it the same way wealthy people treat their mortgage or rent. It's not optional. Now let's step back and look at the bigger picture. The average person sees money as a constant source of stress. They spend first, carry credit card balances, and promise themselves they'll start saving next year. Disciplined people approach money differently. They save before they spend. They pay off their credit cards in full whenever possible. They keep lifestyle inflation under control. At first, the difference is almost invisible. Imagine two people earning the same $50,000 salary in their 20s. One spends nearly everything they make. The other consistently saves and invests 15% of every paycheck. By age 30, the first person might have only a couple $1,000s saved, several high-interest credit card balances, and no meaningful investments. The second person could already have around $40,000 steadily growing in low-cost index funds. By 40, the first person is still living paycheck to paycheck, one unexpected car repair away from financial panic. They've earned hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years, yet very little has actually stayed with them. Meanwhile, the disciplined investor has built a six-figure net worth, a fully funded emergency fund, and an investment portfolio that's generating dividends and long-term growth. By 50, the gap becomes impossible to ignore. One person is exhausted, still trading hours for income and worried about retirement. The other has built enough financial security that work becomes a choice instead of a requirement. They can leave a toxic job, take time off, spend more time with family. They're buying freedom instead of simply buying things. That's the difference. Same starting salary, same number of hours in the day. One path stays trapped in survival mode. The other steadily creates flexibility, security, and peace of mind. And that's the biggest wealth secret successful people understand. There isn't some hidden formula locked away behind closed doors. It's an identity shift. It's choosing to see money as a tool instead of a burden. It's protecting your time as if it's your most valuable asset, and it's becoming a little more valuable every single year. Remember the friend I mentioned earlier? Nothing magical happened to them. They didn't win the lottery. They didn't suddenly land a six-figure salary. They simply stopped identifying as someone who was broke and powerless. Instead, they started acting like someone who invests in themselves and makes intentional decisions with money. That one change transformed everything. And the exact same opportunity is sitting in front of you today. You don't need a promotion. You don't need to strike it rich overnight. You just need one decision. Transfer 50 into savings. Cancel a subscription you never use. Buy the book you've been putting off. Small actions repeated consistently become a completely different life. That one decision does more than improve your finances. It changes the way you see yourself. Instead of living in survival mode, you begin thinking like someone who's building a future. Picture what that feels like. No more lying awake at 3 a.m., trying to figure out which bill can wait until next payday. No more feeling sick to your stomach when your mechanic tells you the repair will cost $800. You simply pay the bill because you planned ahead. That's what financial discipline really gives you. It doesn't just build wealth, it creates peace of mind. The median American has less than $1,000 in savings. Build a $5,000 emergency fund, and you've already put yourself in a stronger financial position than a large share of the population. That's what it means to move from surviving to building. The moment you become the kind of person who keeps money instead of immediately spending it, and who values buying back time instead of buying more stuff, your entire life begins to change. You gain options, your stress starts to fade, and for the first time, you're playing the same long-term game that wealthy people have been playing for years. Because building wealth has never been about secret tricks, shortcuts, or overnight success. It's about gradually changing the way you think, the habits you practice, and the choices you make every single day. And that process can begin today, not next month, not next year, right now, starting with the very first decision you make after this video ends.